All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Exceed. This is Gearface. They haven't managed to stop me from ensnaring experts to teach me Exceed characters yet. My victim this week is Taxi.
Hello.
Taxi, thank you so much for being here.
I don't know if I'd still call myself an expert. I'm pretty rusty, but we're gonna get back there.
Uh, I don't know. I think you're gonna. I think for this character in particular, you're gonna do just fine. Um, Today, I have the great pleasure slash trepidation slash fear to announce that we are talking about Minato, a notorious, maybe infamous, uh, a very very scary character from Seventh Cross, and the guy I got on the mic today to teach it is probably one of the most notorious players of this character in Taxi. So I'm very excited. I'm in as good hands as I can be, but I've also been told to buckle in for this lesson because I think it's going to be a scary one. So get ready for a bunch of card game nonsense. We're going to have some fun with this.
Yeah.
Uh, Quick disclaimer before we get started. We're going to be talking about playing to win on this show. Taxi knows no other way to play. Um, if the lines of play that we are describing don't sound fun to you, with Minato in particular, please do not play that way. Please play in the way that you do find fun. That said, if you're looking to play to win with Minato in particular, he is a character that has rotated out of competitive play. So you're going to have to find a legacy tournament or something like that. And if you're up against your friends, just playing casually, use Minato responsibly. He seems like the kind of guy who might end some friendship. So be a little careful with this dude. Um, Disclaimer number 2 is Exceed is not a solved game, and I'm certainly not an expert. Taxi is an expert, but even his opinion is just a very informed one. So anytime that he says always do this or never do this or this is always the right play or something, take those with a grain of salt.
I don't think I'm going to say
He
that at all this episode. This is
I
Minato.
yeah, I think you've got all of the bases covered on this one. But these are the rules of Taxi's strategy. They don't have to be the rules of your strategy. So just take that into account as we're listening here. Is that this is all very informed opinion on Taxi's part. But yeah, with all that said, Taxi, tell me a little bit about Minato.
Minato's great. He's my favorite character from when I first started the game. You could see, if I think you can see it in tabletop, my profile picture is a fan art that
Oh yeah,
Mizuki
oh
made
yeah,
for me. It's Minato with a taxi cab in the background.
oh yeah, it's over. This is so this is his character card, but it's just you in the back. I assume that this is you. Is this taxi
Yeah,
cab? This is what you look like in real life. Okay, so
that is.
it's a selfie you took with Minato.
Mhm.
Okay, so you are uniquely qualified to cover
I
this
am.
guy.
I've met him in the flesh. We had a good conversation.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Okay. So there's kind of this trend that some of the other high level players used to discuss with me between like how you get good at the different seasons and
Okay.
things like season 3, season 5. Typically, when you get good at those seasons, it's about refining and optimizing the play style.
Okay.
Right? Like you want big numbers, you want to play the right cards really strong. It's kind of like making them tighter to make the right decisions, and finding the right decisions can be difficult. Season
Right.
2 characters are in this weird position where a lot of them are already like kind of optimized thanks to the transforms, where they have this
Okay.
very clear game plan of what they want to set up that's put in front of you.
Right. And there's these like unique kind of decision points where it's like you want this and then you'll have it for the rest of the game. You want this, you'll have it for the rest of the game. Like they're kind of guide rails to your end game.
Right. And
Okay.
what we've kind of found, at least back in the day, was the way that you get better with season 2 characters is you find flexibility.
Okay.
Um
So I have in front of me a character who has a defined end game. The way that I'm going to get better at piloting that character is finding different ways to that end game or finding different end games.
That's definitely true for some of the season 2 characters. For Minato specifically, he has a lot of different end games that we've discovered, and that's part of what makes him so scary.
Okay.
It's really hard to talk about the rest of the characters before you start talking about his transforms. And the most iconic one, the most notable one that you're going to see as like the default Minato line, especially from newer players that pick him up, is going to be EX Minato, where your job is to set up Fractured Memories, which is his transform on bus stop, and just make all of your attacks EXs, because +1 to every stat is really good.
Yeah, and you wind up kind of just, I mean, you'll pardon the pun, running the opponent over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the way this works, you start putting things in your seal, in your transformation, you get a bunch of EXs. Both of your other transforms, well, especially this one, kind of help you get this engine running. And we'll talk a little bit more about these in the near future.
Okay.
Your character ability also really helps to get your ability running, because it gives you more resources and it puts those things in your sealed area, which makes them EX.
Okay. So, and for people who may not be up on sealed areas, because not every character has this, and they kind of work differently. A sealed area is like, it's not your discard pile. It's another kind of exile zone where cards go, and unless it specifically says somewhere on them that somewhere on your character or somewhere on another card that you can interact with that sealed area, they're kind of dead. Like, you can't reshuffle them back into your deck with the manual reshuffle action. They're like a separate thing. And different characters have different ways to interact with their sealed area or get different things out of it. But it's basically like you're exiling a card, right? If you're a Magic player. Okay.
Yeah. Typically, when you're playing this very like default style of Minato that we'll kind of use as a reference point when we jump off, you want one of every card in your sealed area or transforms.
And then everything else is
yeah. No matter what card you play, it's
every time I play a card, it's EX. Okay. Yeah. So you may generate force or gauge by sealing the top card of your discard pile for 1 force, or the top 3 cards for 1 gauge. So it's been a couple turns. I have a couple things in my discard pile. They're over here. Mm-hmm. This is not an action that I'm taking. No. I'm saying, all right, I'm changing cards.
Yes.
And rather than changing cards from hand or from gauge, I'm saying discard pile goes to sealed area. That's 1 card. That's 2 card. That's 2 force. I have now taken the change cards action from my discard pile basically by sealing them.
Right. You have so much freedom with how you can spend force in this game. It is absurd. Because you can change cards, which means you never have to prepare, because most of the time you can prepare, but better, because you also get cards into your sealed area.
Right. And I shouldn't be reading that, especially not for this line of play, I shouldn't be reading that as a downside. I want things in my sealed area. Okay.
Yes. For most styles of play, what you're going to see is this is your resource engine that allows you to do things faster than your opponent.
Okay. So I could I could change cards from gauge or from hand, but the ability to do this from my discard pile is an accelerator of the game plan, because it's also getting me into things in my sealed area that I can use for a transform later.
Correct. And with how we use this, there's a thing in military training, and it's called OODA.
Okay. And it's I am not familiar. Tell me about OODA.
It is observe, orient, decide, act. Okay. And it's this very basic loop of, you look at a situation, you decide what you're going to do and orient yourself to be able to do it.
Right.
Or you observe the situation, you put yourself in a good position, then you decide on a course of action and you do it.
Okay.
Because Minato can generate resources so readily all the time, where other characters might have to slow down and take slow turns just to be resource positive, Minato tends to be able to run this loop faster than other opponents, which means that he can put pressure on people faster than they can respond.
Okay.
Yeah. And likewise, if your opponent's pressuring you, you can often respond before they have time to generate new threats. And using this tempo advantage is big to every single Minato game plan.
Okay. So I'm again, because it's not an action on my turn, I am going to be using this ability regularly just in the course of playing.
Yes.
Like irrespective of what line of play I'm going for, the ability to generate resources from resources that I've already spent is a big deal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You already mentioned changing cards, which typically is going to be your default way of drawing with this character, because you can take one turn to draw more cards than you would be able to with a prepare. And also, putting things in your sealed area is usually an upside.
Right.
So you're doing a better prepare with additional upside.
Right. If I wanted to, Taxi, if I had a card in my gauge and a couple cards in my discard pile, there's nothing in here that says that all the force I'm generating has to be from one area or anything. I could mix and match if I needed to, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. This is just additional force you can generate. You don't have to spend it all from discard.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yep. You can spend it walking around, because being able to put yourself in a good position while also going card in hand positive and putting something in your seal area.
Because you draw for end of turn because you're not striking or anything. You just get to maintain resource flow that way.
Right. Most other characters in the game, if they want to move, they have to go card in hand neutral or card in hand negative, which makes move this really hard action to take a lot of the time. Minato doesn't have this problem. Minato can just walk wherever he wants and often get a lot of benefit from it. The other important part that gets used less, but you should not forget about, is that you can spend 3 cards for a gauge.
Right. So I could pay for, like, if I had a ton of things in my discard pile, I could pay for an ultra with nothing in my gauge.
Correct. Which means your ultras are often online like turn 5, 6.
Right.
Especially this one. And 1 to 3, 10, 4 is not a bad stat line.
Yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah, this is a spike that hits at range 1. Sure, it doesn't ignore armor, but it still breaks everything that matters.
Right, yeah. I mean, if they block, they are massively resource down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you have it ready to EX, then it's 11 damage that hits at speed 5.
And it's on curve now at 3, right? Okay, so that's really scary.
He's a character.
So this is coming. All of this stuff is coming from my discard pile, which means, do I also have a way to get things into my discard pile, or does that just come from playing the game?
Play the game. You have some ways, which is one of the play styles we'll talk about. But typically, for the default plan, you just kind of play the game, and you use your resources twice to play the game faster than your opponent. Get your EXs so that you're playing better than your opponent, better cards on average, and just kind of use that to run away with things.
So the default for this line of play is I'm kind of looking to get one of each card into my discard pile, so I can get one of each card into my sealed area. Correct. Okay.
And luckily, it's not that difficult to do, especially with change cards.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like sometimes it's difficult to get a card into gauge because you have to hit with it or something. It's pretty simple to not just get a specific card into your discard pile, but a lot of them all at once. Okay, so like a legitimate turn 1 play, if you had nothing in your hand as Minato that you wanted to play with that was better than this, you could just CC your entire hand to put it in your discard pile so that later on you can start spending it as force.
Yep, and in some matchups, that's
Okay.
actually one of the best plays you can do.
Okay. So, but that is when you say doing things fast. That's the kind of thing you're talking about, where you're like, I don't care about any of these resources because these resources are for later. Let's just start the end.
Yes.
Got
just
it.
go.
Okay.
Minute 1,
Yep.
pedal to the metal. Start hitting the opponent. Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
that's the ability.
Yes.
And one of the ways that I use this ability is to set up scary EXs.
Yes.
Okay.
He has an exceed side. His exceed side does exist. When you're playing more competitively, it's extremely niche.
Okay.
This is probably the closest you get to a never on Minato in the hundreds of games that I played with Minato. I have never seen this work well.
Okay.
I know that there are theoretical positions where it can, and it's very strong to get a bunch of plus power. But if you're using this, it kind of has to be a Hail Mary. And if you're playing Minato well, you really shouldn't be in a Hail Mary position.
Okay. So the way that this would work, at the start of each of your turns, seal all cards in your discard pile. So I've got 5 cards here already. I've been sealing them all game, so I don't have a huge amount.
Yeah.
At the beginning of my turn, I seal all of them, they go away. On that turn, not even on that turn, my next attack has that much power.
It accumulates up.
Okay, but then once I've attacked, I need to get more things into my discard pile, so I'm kind of charging up by discarding more things.
Correct. The trick with this is you lose your ability to generate more resources.
Okay.
So you're kind of stuck at the pace you've set.
Okay.
This is like, it's a game ender.
And in order, yeah. I was going to say, in order to actually get value out of this, you need to be pumping your discard pile pretty full. You're going to run out pretty soon. The idea then is that this is rush down time. You're going to kill your opponent before they kill you. But from what you're saying, you have other ways to end games that you don't really need this ever.
Yes, there is one other big trick with it where you can use it to infinitely stall.
Okay.
But this, like, it's extremely late game, extremely niche, but theoretically, you can never deck out.
Is this the infamous Minato, Millato line?
This is different from Minato. Because Minato, you want to stay on front side.
Okay, so he has different ways to stall out the game.
Yes. Minato isn't really about
out.
stalling out the game. It's just about winning by deck out, but you're doing it quickly.
Okay, I gotcha. It also occurs to me, the more that we say that word out loud, that it actually doesn't sound good at all to say if you don't have the spelling in front of you, because that's not a good word.
Minato.
So yeah, that means something bad. Or at least it means something that could be charged. But all right, so the mill out strategy, we can call it, maybe.
Okay, I don't know what you're referencing, but
I'll tell you later, man.
Yep.
This is he has a couple different ways to exert deck pressure. One of them is on this side by stalling out infinitely.
Yeah.
The other is aggressively milling out the opponent. Mm-hmm. Okay, I gotcha. So, but for the most part, I can ignore a Boroguruma, right?
Yeah, a Boroguruma is extremely, extremely niche.
Okay, cool.
Okay, now that we kind of jumped all over the place, let's actually go through the transforms proper. So we already did Bus Stop.
Sure.
This is your EX engine. It's really, really good.
Yep.
Outrun the Past. My hot take has always been that this is his best transform.
Okay.
Because it helps.
Before you set cards for a strike. Sorry, I'm not a card game player. I'm definitely coming at this from a fighting game, so all this stuff is going to take me a second.
You're all good.
Seal up to 4 cards from your discard pile or gauge. For every 2 cards sealed this way, draw a card. So you're just before every strike, you're also drawing cards.
Mhm. This
Okay.
also works on defense.
Right.
So, say for example that you draw both copies of Spike, and you know, oh man, they're gonna play Spike, or eh. Say that you draw a copy of Spike, and you know you've got more stuff in your deck. Like you can just discard cards that you know won't win the strike, and you get more EX
And
options.
and get more. Okay, and this also, so if what I want is the ability to get things in my discard pile so I can seal them later
Yes.
by spending force,
Mm-hmm.
then every time, again, I'm using a Magic the Gathering tournament and outlet, right? Like you sometimes like a sack outlet or something. Like this is a way to spend force during a strike
Yes.
whenever I want. So that is valuable. Even if what I'm getting out of it, the new cards in my hand that are not winning me the strike, I'm putting things in my discard pile, and that's something that I might want.
It also lets you seal Gauge, which is important. Because normally to get Gauge from your sealed area to, or from your Gauge to your sealed area, you have to spend it
Right.
to put it in your discard pile, and then spend it from your discard pile to seal it.
And that probably takes two interactions,
Correct.
right? Because unless you are uh, doing actually, how would that work? So I'm taking a gigantic change cards action.
Mhm.
I have something in my Gauge. I spend a Gauge. I continue to spend in order to generate force, and then the things I've spent go to my discard pile,
Correct.
so that I can't.
So if you spend the
Okay,
Gauge, it does not go to your discard pile until all costs are paid.
okay. So I'm accumulating all of those like expenditures up front, and then I pay them all at once, and they go to discard pile.
Correct.
But then if I want to do it again later from the discard pile, now I have things in there. I can't do it all as part of one action.
Correct.
Okay, so this speeds that up too.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
You get more card draw. It helps you get the rest of your cards more consistently. If you need answers, you can dig for them faster. You can set up EXs that would not otherwise be possible. Because normally, if I'm Minato's opponent and I see a sweep here, I know they can't play EX sweep.
Oh, so it's not a transform. It's not in my transform area, and it's not in my sealed area. If I put down the other copy of sweep, you know where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But this enables
So
that.
the okay, so and I because I can seal directly from. Oh, and that timing actually does matter though. So when I'm setting cards for a strike, if I have sweep in my Gauge,
Yes.
before that happens, and you said it works on defense, they're like, assault might work better as a defensive EX, but sweep works fine. They're like, cool. I see sweep in Gauge. He cannot play EX sweep. He puts his card down. You say, okay, before setting cards, I seal something from my discard pile. Sweep.
Yeah.
Now you have EX sweep. Okay, that's horrifying.
The other thing that's super notable that most people miss on this transform, so on your UA, you have to seal the top card of your discard pile to get the force.
Right.
This does not have to be the top card. This is any card from your discard pile or Gauge.
It's just up to 4 from your discard pile or Gauge. Okay, so this doesn't just speed it up; it gives you more control over what goes to your sealed area.
Correct. You fix your discard pile.
Okay.
If you discarded a card and you had to do something else before you could spend it, this fixes that issue. You get to seal it anyway.
Okay. In terms of can an attack become an EX attack mid strike, Taxi?
It's not mid strike. This is before you set cards for a strike.
No. Separate thing. Sorry, I'm jumping around slightly. I just saw the thing, the actual text on the attack of bus stop, but I'm thinking about Rekka effects, right? Push 2, then you may spend up to 2 force. If I am spending cards that go into my sealed area, and one of the cards I'm spending is the counterpart of the card that I'm playing, does that card become an EX afterward?
So
Like in the middle of the strike?
no, and this is why. When you reveal your attack, if a copy of your attack is in your sealed or transformation area,
Okay,
it's considered an EX.
this hit effect is happening at hit timing, so that's not working.
Correct.
Okay.
You have to reveal your attack before you play this.
Okay, they thought of that one.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
I'm sure that broke the developers.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of things about Minato were very finicky to work out.
I do not envy Andorel.
So this is for speeding things up, for curating my engine to get not just things in, because I don't want things in my sealed area. I want specific things.
Correct.
Okay, that gets me that as well.
Well, okay, sometimes correct. This is Minato.
Sometimes you just want material.
Yes.
Okay, but for the EX line of play in particular, until I can get a copy of every single card in my deck into my sealed area, I want the good ones to EX first.
Right. For very standard play Minato, you want one of everything.
Okay.
Either in transform or in sealed.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Okay. The other thing this lets you do, I know you said you don't have to touch on transforms, but you're probably going to hear it for every 7th cross character anyway. EX transforms exist.
Yes.
Which you know about, right?
Yes.
Yes. Which means if you just draw the cards, you don't have to risk playing them. You can just guarantee get your transform.
Right. So for people who don't know, if I have here, if these 2 cards are in my starting hand, and I don't want to risk hitting a 4-speed 5-7 with a before retreat effect, I can just say, okay, EX transform, this goes in my transform area, this goes in my discard pile.
Yep. And it doesn't have to be your starting hand. It can just be at any point in the game.
Okay, yeah, at any point in the game. Right. Yeah.
Which means you could just play this. You don't have to risk missing the attack, because a lot of counterplay in Season 7 against a lot of characters that have less of a draw engine is they don't get their transform unless they're willing to risk it or draw that card that's maybe at the bottom of their deck. Minato just is going to get to the bottom of his deck, like, quickly.
Really, really fast. Okay, so among the things that I could do with this character ability is dig for an EX transform in the early game, or really anytime.
Yes.
But I can find ways to get my stuff faster than most characters could.
Yep.
Okay.
You will set up first, you will be online and ready to go, and you will always have more resources than the opponent does.
Okay.
Okay. We got Weight of Regret as well, which is another stall tool. But also really, really just, it's silly. It's so silly.
If you did not hit the opponent,
yes,
you may return it to your hand instead of discarding it. Okay, so I just get recursion.
So
as long as I don't hit.
This is where like the dumbest tools in existence get into play. For example, you know this little normal called Cross? It's pretty bad. No one really ever plays it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm joking.
Taxi,
in case anyone is watching this.
Taxi, what are you doing?
Well, say that they're here and you're here, and man, it's such a shame that Cross doesn't hit here. I guess I'll just go first and get way out of range so that you can't hit me, and also, whoops, it goes back to my hand.
It goes back to your hand. Does that also mean...
Which means, whoops, I can just play it again.
But also, Taxi, block can't hit.
Block has an after effect.
Add this card to your gauge at the end of the strike. Okay, thank
God.
Yep,
that triggers before you can make decisions.
All right, sick. So you can't just block forever.
But you know what doesn't? Okay. Focus just has 2 armor on demand that draws you a card.
2 armor on it. Okay. You're the only person.
You just, draw a card, I guess you have 2 armor, and put focus back in your hand.
Taxi, you're the only person that I talk to on these guides who, we're 30 minutes into a lesson, I'm just rubbing my face. Why do you always do you specifically always do this to me? Okay, so I can recur focus, I can recur cross. I could, if I needed to never be zoned ever again. I could just dive
Yeah,
forever.
oh no, I guess I just move in against the zoner, and whoops, I didn't hit.
Yeah,
Oh well, I
I
guess I'll
didn't
pick it
hit.
up.
I just get grappler movement. You can't zone me. Okay, cool, cool,
Which
cool.
also means that, whoops, I didn't hit. I guess it's still an EX because my other one's in my sealed area, and I'm moving
So
in at speed
that
6.
does that also mean that I get another shot on any transforms that I whiff if this is in play?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good.
If I wasn't
Oh
EX
no, the bus
transforming
stop
them.
I played didn't hit. Oh well, I guess I'll put it back in my hand and EX transform it.
Okay, yeah. That's
Oh no, that
I
attack
think
I
that
played that wasn't supposed to hit at all. Let me just, I don't know, steal stuff at the bottom of my discard pile that I really needed and draw some extra cards. And then you had to play a card that you also knew wouldn't hit. And I just get my stuff
right.
back.
So I think that like the fact that you talked about this one third and this was like a win condition on its own and this one you said might be his strongest means that this sounds like it is like third on the list for a reason. That's still really, really mean that you can just do that stuff.
So I would say this is first.
Okay.
And then these two, it depends on the matchup and your starting hand and your draws and your playstyle.
Okay. So these are both really, really strong things to do. And ideally you get both at some
Yeah.
point. And with your resource engine, you likely can somehow.
You'll never guess which one I lean more towards. It's
Yeah.
it's such a mystery. One day.
You're a monster. I know.
One day we'll
Okay.
figure out the
So
inner secrets of Taxi's mind.
So the plan, as I understand it right now, is still just about getting a bunch of EX attacks.
Yes.
And I'm sure that we're going to get into different ways to use these cards in a few minutes. But in terms of prioritizing the transforms, it's got to be matchup dependent. And I'm just going to get what I get and
It's
go with
matchup
it.
dependent, and this is where it really gets interesting. Is in some game plans, you actively do not want to transform certain cards.
Okay.
Because this should not be a surprise. I think we lightly touched on this idea. Minato has recursion.
Yes.
He can bring things from his sealed area back to his hand.
Right.
You can't recur cards that are transformed.
He can't bring a transformed card back. Okay.
Yes. And sometimes a second copy of a card is more important than the transform.
Okay. To hit with in particular, or is it just to have the EX or something else? Like other than transforming it, what are you doing with these cards?
So Bus Stop's going to be the rarest example of this. Typically, if you get Bus Stop, it's just good. Sometimes you want the Gauge instead, but usually the second copy you don't care about. But Gauge is good.
Okay.
Gauge is good.
Gauge does matter, even though you can generate it from your discard pile.
Yes.
Okay. And if you're transforming it, it's not going to Gauge, so it might matter there.
Yep. In the typical line for EXP down Minato, obviously you want to outrun the pass because it gets your engine online faster.
Right.
You want Bus Stop because it makes you be able to do the EXs.
Right.
But this is a playstyle and matchup choice. Because Weight of Regret is good for positioning. But Barnstorming itself helps you keep up the tempo. Because you get a
discard pile. Oh, okay.
You get a free reshuffle that doesn't count towards your one per game.
Okay,
and
so
you can keep getting them.
Because you'll draw it again eventually.
Correct, and all you have to do
as long as you don't transform it, because then it'll go to Gauge, and then you can put it in your discard pile. Then you can put it in your sealed area, and then it'll come back later.
Right, and the only thing you have to make sure is that you shuffle in your other Barnstorming so that you will be able to draw it again.
Okay.
Right? Guaranteed. Which,
so
if only there was a way to steal cards from Gauge, so that could always happen.
Right. So you potentially have infinite reshuffles.
As long as you can land Barnstorming, you have infinite reshuffles.
Okay.
That gets you advantage at speed 6, power,
and the the recursion doesn't come from your sealed area though; it comes from your discard pile.
It does come from your sealed area. There's sealed area, but also if you reshuffle your discard pile, it goes into your deck.
Right, but if you did that, your sealed area is unchanged, right?
Correct.
So why does sorry, I might have missed something here. Why does sealing from your gauge help you to? Then you'd have the EX more easily. But
yeah, sorry. Excuse me there. You're correct. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking of something further, more shenanigans.
Oh, good. I have more things to look forward
oh yeah,
to.
it can. This is typically the card that getting 2 copies of it's really good because you can shuffle the other one into your deck, and you can try and recur the first one, but smarter opponents might specifically attempt to counterplay you recurring it. Just reshuffling one into your deck means you're going to get it at some point, unpredictably, without letting the opponent know.
Right. They can't parry it out of your hand or something like that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, they could, but they don't know it's in your hand.
Right. They have to take a guess. It'll come back at some point. But also, like, on this may be this. I am unversed in the ways of taxi meta, as you know, but most of the games that I play do not go to much more than one reshuffle. This is not a stall thing. This is I'm going to be burning through my deck so fast that I need more reshuffles.
Yeah, you're a conveyor belt. You get all your resources, all your answers faster than they get their questions.
Okay, so this is not something that this isn't something you use to stall. This is something that you use to just get all your stuff. Okay.
Right, because Ken might play Axe Kick and say, "Can you deal with this?" And Minato can dig for his answers faster than Ken can dig for his Axe Kicks.
And
vice versa.
Then
Minato can dig for his questions faster.
His questions, right. And then Ken has no more Axe Kicks until his next reshuffle. And your reshuffle might not be for a little while yet until you burn through your entire deck by generating cards in your sealed area and hit Barnstorming to reshuffle whenever you want.
This can also mask information because Minato is what's called a boss character in Exceed, which is a character that gets like strong things, but the cost is that they bleed information.
Right.
Because the more cards you discard, the more aware the opponent is of what you could actually be playing. There's fewer guesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So this can help mask your intentions.
Sorry. That makes sense. So you're just able to have a larger deck of options so that they have to guess more ambiguously.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah. As far as the other ones, they aren't bad attacks for their top sides. This is extremely good discard build. It retreats you, it's fast, it pokes at long range. It's fast for its range.
Right.
You can discard cards to retreat.
So discard. So turn 1, it seems like. Discard a couple cards because I have nothing in my sealed area or in my discard in order to seal things yet. I could just play this, back up, hopefully hit. I mean that's the cost, right? Is that I really want to make sure that I'm hitting with this. But at the very least, I'm getting things into my discard pile so I can seal for later.
Yep. As long as you aren't hit beforehand, you can do this trigger. You can start going right away. And then as soon as Outrun the Pass is online, it's so hard for the opponent to do anything because every time they attack you, they're just advancing your engine.
Right, because you're just getting more cards every single time. You're sealing more things every single time. That is advancing you towards your end state. And again, from what we're talking about, your end state is just hit them with EXs over and over again.
And also, in a matchup like this where you're not facing against another Season 2 character, your late game spike is so much higher than theirs because of transforms.
Right.
So they can't just let you sit here. They have to waste resources to come in.
Right. So people who might not be familiar with like the nuances of the way that Season 2 tends to work is that they frequently start out at a weaker point than a character that you might be used to from a newer season. Like most characters in Exceed have somewhere to go from turn one. They build up to something because they get gauge, they get a curated hand, stuff like that. But season two characters, because they have transforms, before they have these, they're not anywhere near their strongest. But when they get to their strongest, they're a problem. They probably just win at that point. Is that correct, Taxi?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Minato's kind of on the tamer end of that scale, but yes, that's the season 2 trend.
Okay. So and part of that is like these transforms you can't boost with them, so you have limited ways to play neutral sometimes. He has some boosts, but and obviously he has a lot of resource stuff that lets him play the game early on. But another character like Galdred or Turnalouse or somebody like that, who everything they have is transforms, um, might have more difficulty with that stuff. But you're saying that if I'm fighting a season 3 character as Minato, it's on them to deal with me before I've reached my final form. And in order to deal with me fast enough, they're going to have to be kind of inefficient with their resources.
Yes, they have to generate gauge. They have to get their ultras so that they can end the game. Because
Right.
if we both just sit here ad infinitum, I'm going to win.
Right. And they don't have to give you very long because you can generate all these resources so quickly.
Yes.
So they're on a short timer to kill you, and the longer the game goes, the better. But also, you don't need the game to go that long.
Nope.
Okay.
I can, yeah. And we'll start to get into that as we start talking about his different play styles and how you kind of change in between them based on how the match is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's his transforms.
Okay.
You can see you've got the start of an EX engine. You've got the start of kind of this stall engine. You've got this engine accelerator. Right. You've got a lot of ideas.
So either one of these, if I'm going stall style, I'll want this. If I'm going EX style, I always want this. I'm going to want this for either one.
Yeah, there's very few situations where you don't really want Flight 13 transformed. It's pretty safe.
If I am, I just did a lesson on Galdred earlier today with Reggie, and he has a lot of ways to get cards into his transform area without hitting them or without EXing them. Does Minato have that, or am I going to have to either find the EX or hit with Flight 13?
Find an EX, which Flight 13 helps you do.
Right.
But also you have so much card draw. You have so much card draw because you can just change cards.
You're just going to get an EX, but you don't have like obsessive research. You don't have the ability to just say like I transform something from my hand.
No, we don't really get tutors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Yep. Typically the only time you're gonna gauge Flight 13 is with strategies where you really want gauge.
Right.
Which exists. So, and we'll get into that. You know,
and looking at these, I know that we haven't really talked about attacks as attacks yet, except for the some of the hit and before effects on these cards, and we'll probably get to them in a second. But in terms of their transforms, like none of these are totally safe, right? Like all of them can be crossed out of, this on defense at least could lose to a spike. Like there's ways you could whiff these basically, and with how important the transforms are, am I preferring to EX transform kind of whenever I am able to?
Typically, you want to EX transform on this character. If you find yourself in a good position, you can obviously hit. All of his attacks are deceptively safer than you think they are. Okay. This is just, if you look at this card, it's just a good fireball that hits at long range. If you're in that range band, it's probably hitting against most characters.
Right.
It outspeeds dive if you throw it out.
So, and if that's the fastest thing they've got, and for several characters it is, right? If Ryu doesn't have his Hadoken out yet.
Yeah.
And you know, he plays, I mean, if he plays cross, I don't have to do anything. He dodges out of the way and I just hit him because this before effect will happen after I see their card. But so I could realistically against a lot of characters just play Flight 13 turn 1. on offense and be fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Less so against the newer seasons because newer seasons tend to have more round start options. But yes,
So some kind of fast dive, some kind of fast projectile,
yeah,
something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But against Ryu, for example, if I see that they don't have anything speed 5 or higher that hits at this range, or that well, if they assault and get to here, I am whiffing, right? But
Correct.
that is a hard call out on their part.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all they got. But even that might be enough that I want to EX transform this instead because of how important it is.
But say if you're just one space forward from start positions, if they assault, you can still hit.
Right, because you can back up even farther.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe not turn 1, but pretty much anytime you're at range 4 or greater, you can find some ways to do this.
Mm-hmm. And even if they assault, it goes to discard. It's not the end of the world because we can loop it. It depends on how much you care about getting rid of their assault.
Okay. I got you. So you might not get your transform now, but you'll get it at some point. Okay.
Yeah. Which is one of Minato's biggest strengths, is he's just kind of going to get his things. It's really hard to stop him from just getting.
It's really hard to stop him. Yeah. Okay. I get you. So and the same is true, maybe not the ability to hit with it cleanly, but if I do whiff a barnstorming or something,
not the end of the
or
world.
if I do whiff a bus stop, it's not the end of the world. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. A lot of Minato players that I've seen do think it's the end of the world if you miss a bus stop. I really disagree. This card is essentially a sweep. It's a slightly worse sweep. But it pushes. So
it pushes. It can dodge sweep too, which is cool. At range 2, at least you can kind of mid speed your way out of there.
Yep. Yeah, and it's faster than sweep is.
Right.
So this card is interesting. It's got some uses up its sleeve. I wouldn't really be afraid of throwing out bus stop. If you're throwing out all your transforms, obviously you're going to have some issues. But if you're throwing some out because it's the best card to throw out, yeah, go for it. Don't be so afraid of losing the transform that you're not willing to play these cards. Because you might hit, which is going to be great. Even if you don't, that's fine. You have tools. You will get them back. You will see them again.
Okay.
Speaking of which, let's move on to some of his other tools here.
Sure.
Yeah.
I also, as you're pulling this out, I should also note that like the amount of time that we just spent talking about his transforms, and then the much shorter amount of time that we spent talking about his attacks, probably should say something.
Yes.
That the reason these are not important stat lines. The stat lines are how important or how easy they are to get the transforms we want.
Yep, or the effect we want with this.
Right, totally. Yeah, for the recursion or the infinite reshuffle and stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what else we got?
Okay, let's start with Cab Stand, and we're gonna go in a slightly weird order. It's me.
You're absolutely dumpstering somebody.
Yes.
This poor dude. Okay, so this is it's a fast dive, basically.
It is. You have to spend some force. Oh no, you get to discard or you get to either discard things or seal things.
Right.
How horrible. It's a fast dive. It's got this weird after advance 3 that's also really useful because it's a fast dive that you don't have to move, so it can't. You can just make it not hit.
Oh.
Unless they're already at range 1, you can just make it not hit and get it back. So it's free movement.
It's free movement.
If you have Barnstorming. At speed 5. It's great.
Okay. This is the most taxi thing I've ever heard. Okay, so and I should be treating it as free movement more than I should be treating it as an attack.
Yeah.
Are you saying?
It's a fast dive. Okay. It's good. If it's EX, it does 4 power at speed 6 at range 4.
Yeah, that's solid, and it's a force outlet. I'm expending force, and it's something I want to do anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we get this beautiful boost.
Instead of drawing at the end of your turn. Oh, I found our recursion.
Yes. This is a
Okay.
continuous boost, so they have to strike you to get rid of it.
Oh.
You just
So
keep getting that
instead of
effect until they strike you.
instead of drawing at the end of each of your turns, basically,
Yes.
until they hit you. Okay, this is actually like could be quite a bit of recursion if they let it happen that
A
way.
really common
Um,
play that you'll see is one more ride, return cab stand.
I was as you started talking, I was like, he's gonna tell me to recur itself so I can keep on recurring things, isn't he? And then you did say that,
Yes.
and now I'm mad at
If
you.
they strike you
Okay,
and miss, cool. They're one card down in their deck. Awesome.
right,
Against someone who
right,
can infinitely reshuffle if I so choose.
uh-huh.
And if they don't
So
strike you, well, then you're just straight value.
and then you're just getting stuff that you want back anyway. But at least once when you play this, you will get a thing back.
Yes.
The thing that my opponent is trying to stop is me getting more things back.
Right.
So if the first thing I get back is my other copy of Cab Stand, I will keep on pressuring them to do that.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you could call is Hellward Bound, because guess what? Hey, it's another recursion effect.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So I have a lot of recursion then.
Yeah. So both players discard the top 4 cards of their deck. You may return up to 2 cards from your sealed area to your hand. This starts the mill engine.
This is the mill engine.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Where you both
right.
discard 4 cards, but hey, I can reshuffle an infinite amount of times. Can you? And most other characters have this problem where they only have 2 cards of each card in their deck, like Minato does.
Yep.
But they don't have recursion, and I do.
Right.
So, you know,
right.
if Ken discards both of his axe kicks, whoops.
He just got a lot.
I guess you have to early reshuffle if you want to get those back, don't you?
Right. Or if they don't reshuffle, they've opened up a hole in their defenses that you can then exploit with your attacks.
So you get to you can either use it to straight mill or to open up holes,
right,
while accelerating your game plan and getting tools that you want back. That, by the way, you can pick after they expose their holes.
Oh, right. Right, because order matters.
Yes.
These are 2 different sentences. So everybody discards first. You're cool with that. You'll get your stuff back if you need to. And then you'll be like, I see that you just got rid of these 2 cards or these 4 cards. I'll get these 2 things that you can no longer deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'll get the other copy of this. So I can do it again later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, you know, you have options. Yeah, Hellward Bound calling itself in one other card is also really common.
Makes sense. So both of these are part of my recursion engine. And when you were talking earlier about like if you whiff a transform and it goes to your discard pile, these are why it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Never seal too many of these. You will be sad.
Okay,
you need a tool to get them back out.
I need to be able to get them back, and I only have 2 copies of them. So is sealing 1 too many?
No, sealing 1 is fine.
Okay, yeah. As long as you can get the other one back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, I would say combined total, it's okay to seal 2 of these cards.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so have half of them, no matter what the half is, because I could get the other one if I seal both Hellward Bounds. I got 2 cab stands. Yeah. I'll get them back. Okay.
If you seal 3 of them, you run into this really hard issue where you're waiting for this last card, and it might be the last card of your deck.
Right, and you have a lot of ways to accelerate your engine, but that's contingent on other tools that you might need to get back some other way.
Yep. And the less you can recur, the more you have to slow down because you can't afford to get your sealed area back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I keep on interrupting this so that we can check in on what the end state is. We are still talking about like the plan is do all of this fancy manipulation stuff to get a bunch of stupid EX attacks and just hit my opponent over and over again. Now I just have more ways to do it, more ways to keep keep the components of my engine safe so I'm sure that I get them, more ways to expose holes in my opponent's defense, more ways to get those EX attacks back if I whiff one. Um, the overall game plan has not changed. At least the first overall game plan that you're talking about has not changed since we introduced these cards.
Right. These can fit for this game plan. These can fix your issues where you seal two of the same card.
Right.
Because at least before you get this tool out, it's going to happen. And then this one specifically can also remove opponents' options to make your EX attacks unbeatable. Because even if you just discard one copy of something, something that was a big deal that kind of was not really realized by a lot of players early on was removing one copy means they can no longer EX it.
Oh, yeah.
That's an option you're turning off. Because a lot of people think, they can still sweep, but now they can't EX sweep.
Yeah, when we say that something is unbeatable, there's often an asterisk next to it, and what we mean is, well, okay, it loses like EX Assault.
Yeah.
But that's special. But it loses the EX Assault, and if they can't EX Assault something, then maybe you might have something legitimately unbeatable. Mm-hmm. Okay. So where we are in the game plan is I want lots of EXs. I want to move through my deck into my discard and then into my sealed area as quickly as possible. This helps me do it. This helps me do it. These help me get these things, and also helps me open holes in my opponent's defenses, all that stuff. Yeah. And then if I am going too fast, barnstorming the attack helps me keep having road in front of me so I can keep speeding down it.
Yes.
Okay. And the other attacks themselves are engine components, not attacks, right? Like I don't actually care.
Correct. For the EX game plan,
I have a ranged threat.
This is not an attack. This is just like, I guess you could discard cards.
This is a way to get a transform. Yeah. Same with Capstand, honestly, it seems like.
One more ride, one more ride is nice.
No. The attack itself. Like from what we're talking about under this line, I'm probably playing the boost more often.
Yeah. One more. Okay. Capstand, the attack itself is like, if you don't have this transform out, it's hard to play because the opportunity cost of missing the boost is so hard. If you do have this transform out, it's free. Hey, your opponent just spent a turn saying, go ahead, choose any spot on the board. You can move there, I guess.
Right. As long as you aren't hitting, you still have the boost, so you're fine.
If you're not at range 1, you aren't hitting. That's the great part.
Right, yeah, okay. Unless they oh man, I'm trying to come up with an idea here. Unless they move in at speed 6 and whiff, right? So that you're at range 1 now.
Yes.
That's not happening.
Yes. They play the projectile that definitely exists that says speed 6, close 3, range 2 to 4.
Exactly. And then you're hitting this attack and you don't want to. But okay, so hit these for the transforms or for their effects, not necessarily for the attacks. This is only really an attack if I have this transform up. These boosts are crazy.
Yes.
For recursion, for everything. Okay. I believe I've caught up.
Okay. This Ultra is extremely good, but also a meme because it costs 6.
Yes, it does.
Sometimes you can afford it. Sometimes it's good. It does, it does damage. It's speed 3, but if it's EX, it's got 1 armor, 5 guard.
Right.
This is a pretty good effect, though. You can just make it free. It's really hard to pull off, but sometimes late game it's a Hail Mary.
There are no cards in your deck and discard pile, so you have everything in your sealed area or gauge or hand.
Correct.
So that is a late game play.
Yes.
Okay.
If only there was a way to get rid of your discard pile every turn.
Gotcha. Okay. So that is but this is already a late game play and already a Hail Mary.
Yes.
So I probably shouldn't be worried too much about Hellward Bound as an attack.
Yeah, the meme of Origurama is hey, I have like plus 20 power and I play Hellward Bound and it's free.
And I kill you.
In 1 strike. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's a Origurama one shot. Yeah. Not very good competitively, but if you land it, take a screenshot. please.
And then they're like, sick. I parry Hellward Bound, and you're like, oh.
And then you just say, okay, I'll just discard the top 4 cards of my deck, which
Good
there's
point.
no cards
Yeah.
there. I have one more ride in place that I actually don't draw.
Yeah, there's ways out of it. I'm so mad. Okay. So, all right. So, but that's where we are. That's our snapshot of the game plan so far. Our evolving understanding of Minato continues. Tell me about these last few tools.
Okay, jump the shark. This is where sometimes quantity matters over quality.
Okay.
So it's, range 3 to 4. It hits for 2 power at speed 6. It's all right. It's like a grasp, but it hits at range 3 to 4, but it doesn't move things. It's kind of weak, right? Except, it can get up to +5 power.
Except it hits for 7, and you're almost always going to have, well, maybe not 20 cards, but you're going to have a lot of cards.
You can pretty realistically hit for 5 or 6. Right. You can hit for 7, I guess. You can break a sweep at range 3 with speed 6.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a scary attack. So this is my payout for having.
And if it's EX,
all of my engine,
it hits for 8 power, so it breaks focus.
It hits for 8. Yep, it does. For all the times that they're playing focus at range 4. Yeah, okay. That's really scary. So, but this is a late game card too, right? This is a payout option.
It can be. Some people hold on to Jump to Shark because they really want maximum value. They say, this card's going to be better later, I should hold it in my hand. I think it's a trap. Just play it. If it hits for 4, if it hits for 5, it's good damage. Just play the damage. It's free damage. Take it. You will draw it back later. Hitting for that 4 damage, getting another card in your hand, activating this effect, being able to shuffle your deck and draw it again later is going to be way more valuable than trying to hold it in your hand to hit for 7.
Right. So you do need, but in order to do any of that stuff, you need a couple of your engine components online. So at the very least, this is probably not like a turn 1 play.
If it hits for 2, it's probably not doing a lot for you. Sometimes it does because it stuffs assault, and you really care about them not assaulting.
I gotcha. Okay.
But yeah. The boost.
And how about its boost? Yeah.
It's niche, but not for the reason you think it's niche.
Okay.
I almost never really care about moving 4. But
it's not up to 4. It's not but it's in either direction, but it's not up to 4. Okay.
Right. It is only 1 force, so it's cheaper than moving 4, and it still costs a 4, so I can discard some things. Like, sometimes you just want to back up 4, and you don't want to have to discard the top 4 cards of your deck.
But most of the time, you would rather actually be moving by generating force.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So this, it kind of goes into that thing where, like, the top of my discard is bad, but I really need to move right now, so instead of discarding 4 bad cards, I'll discard 1 bad card.
So the idea of force efficient movement being potentially a problem because you want to spend force is something that I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around. But okay,
yeah,
I'm following you in theory.
Well, say these 4 cards. Say this is your sealed area, right?
Yeah,
and say you have 4 normals on the top of your deck, and you really need to run away.
I see.
Instead of
that's what
spending all 4 of those normals and then having to spend all this time on screwing yourself,
right?
You can just put 1 normal there and then happen to fix it when you're doing something you want to do anyway.
Okay, so this is also relevant. Like we've been talking about all of the cool things you can do. One thing that you don't want, pretty much ever, it seems like, is both copies of anything in your sealed area.
Doesn't really do much for you unless you're setting up Jump the Shark, because there's no
right, and then you just want quantity, and then you're like, I'm not going to hit with EX block. I'll put both blocks in there or something. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for a high value attack or anything that you want to make use of the EX part of this game plan with, you really can't do that with 2 things in your two of the same thing in your sealed area without fixing it later.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Streetcar, your other ultra, much more obtainable at 3 gauge.
Yeah,
especially because this is a character that doesn't really spend their gauge that often. and also
Oh
has
yeah,
extra ways to generate gauge.
you're not spending force from gauge unless you're trying to get it into your discard pile anyway. If you ever need force, it's coming from your discard pile probably.
So this is
Okay.
often more often just an attack. Because you can just have 2 gauge and 3 cards in discard pile, and you can just play this card. And it's good.
Right. Right.
Especially when it's EX'd. 11 damage at speed 5 at range 3. It's good.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's an entire... I've played an entire game where this has been the only attack I hit with. And I won.
You just hit with it 3 times.
Correct.
Yeah, that sounds right. So and then I see this has a boost on it too.
Yes. So now seal up the 4 cards from the top of your deck. It's a direct seal, so it can start your engine.
Okay.
Typically, this is more of a saving grace than a plan A. This is like, oh, you just played Way of the Warrior. Oh no. Well, it's such a shame you only have +2 speed. I have +4 speed.
Right. But you're not controlling what you're sealing, and that actually might be kind of scary for you.
Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not. Because it can be scary, especially if you're not holding some of these cards that help fix yourself in hand.
Right. What if you just sealed those 2 from the top of your deck?
Then you're in a really bad spot.
Right. Okay. That I get you.
Yeah. Which is why you kind of have to be cautious about when you play it.
So, in terms of our overall game plan, EX style stuff, Streetcar is not really playing into that, except as an EX Streetcar is crazy. But it's also not really contradicting it. Like, we're able to set up all this stuff while also just conveniently having Streetcar on deck.
Yep.
They're not separate lines of play necessarily. I could probably do both.
I can just conveniently run a trolley into your face whenever I feel like it.
Right. Yeah, that's just a bonus thing that you can do. Okay.
Yeah. It exceeds a game about trading, and if you land one of these cleanly, like, you're usually just winning the game because it's really hard to catch up 8 health.
Oh yeah. That's tough, it turns out. Okay, so, and I mean, you can, put defend on it and then corner your opponent if you want. Like, there's ways that you can confirm this thing. It'll be fine.
I kind of hinted at this, but there's an entire play style where you just play this card and you just boost this card and you make it unbeatable.
This is the whole thing. Oh yeah, the other copy of this. Here's an 8 speed 10 damage at range 1 to 3.
Yeah. And hey, look, I have it again. Hey, look, I have it again. And they're like, please stop, please. I don't want to play anymore.
I mean, in it, luckily for them, it won't take that long for it to kill them.
Yes.
So that's cool. That's nice of you. All right, so now we got 2 lines of play. We got Streetcar Named Disaster over and over and over again, but really just over and over again twice because it'll only take it 3 hits to kill him. And then the other one is our EX style stuff. What else we got?
Well, we already hinted at it before as well, but we have the mill engine.
Yep. Okay.
Broom Broom Deck Go Bye Bye, which is Weight of Regret. Lets you play attacks that miss to force the opponent to play attacks and go card negative because they have to respond.
They can't. There's no option to say no to a strike.
Correct. And those attacks can have effects that put you in a better position, draw you cards, do whatever. And you get them back, which is absurd.
Right.
It also lets you play Big Hand, which is hilarious.
Oh, sure, yeah. You can, as long as you're striking and as long as you're gaining resources, it doesn't matter that you're over your hand size. Okay.
We use one more ride to stall our draw. We use this attack to reshuffle. And we use this to mill the opponent.
Yep, over and over again. And recur it with one more ride.
And then this becomes an extra mobility tool just to keep away because most people can't keep away. This becomes an extra mobility tool just to keep away because most people can't chase that hard.
Right.
Yeah. This becomes a Hail Mary, just the boost. Just, if the opponent gets a scary setup, you say no, you just use it for free, you get away with something. Now they have to both get in and set something up again. It's terrifying.
Yeah, that seems rough.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about these different play styles, how are you deciding which one to go for? Is that the kind of thing that you're just looking at the matchup and looking at how you feel a given day, or do you have like a prescribed way to figure things out?
So it depends on the matchup and on your playstyle, of course. But
Okay.
if you're playing optimally, it depends on the matchup. It depends on what you draw into early and what you can get online first, and also what the board state happens to look like.
Okay, and this prior to I believe this was prior to going on air
Mhm.
with me, but Taxi mentioned that one of Minato's big strengths is that you can actually move between these play styles as you need to.
Yes.
So this is not something that you're deciding at the beginning of the game. It's something that you're deciding in the early game.
This is something that I'm deciding and reevaluating the entire game.
Okay.
I can get EX online, and all of a sudden, hey, look, Ryu is out of Hados, and we ended here. I'm going to switch to a mill engine because he has to come back in.
He can't stop me from doing that anymore. Okay.
Right. Hey, Ryu's discarded a lot of specials. I'm going to switch to another playstyle that's called Librarian Minato because that's
Okay.
really effective here.
Okay.
Um,
What is Librarian Minato?
okay. So
Dare I ask?
this is going to make you really mad.
I'm sure.
So you know these fancy dancy little recursion tools?
Yes, Taxi.
So we have 8 little cards on the side here that we haven't really talked about that much. They're not really important. You know, hardly any Exceed characters ever use these 8 cards.
No.
Yeah. I'm being sarcastic, just for the audience.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. He definitely is.
It would be a shame if, we just kept getting some of the best 2 boosts in the game. And take a guess why it's called Librarian Minato.
Because you're reading a lot.
And every single time you read them, well, they could pitch all their normals in hand, right? Sure, except I can mill you.
It helps. Except you mill them, yeah.
And also, while I'm milling you, recur reading.
Yeah. So, okay, this was that groan I did. I need the audience to understand that was a comprehensive emotional experience. Because I started out groaning because that's a dumb name, right? That's a bad pun calling it Librarian Minato. And then I was like, oh, now you're recurring reading and you're milling them at the same time. Then the groan became, that's horrible and you're horrible. So just so everyone knows why I was groaning there, it's for all the reasons.
And it's fine, right? Because they could just parry a reading your reading just to prevent you from getting them. Except I can keep getting them back.
Except you can get them back.
And also,
yeah.
Oh no, my reading didn't hit. Oh well.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of this stuff is doable, right?
Yes.
But I don't quite have a sense yet of how quickly. So I recur something that takes a turn, and that's not so bad because it's also maintaining my engine, right? I'm getting something else out of it at the same time.
Right.
But when I'm spending a million force to get everything into my sealed area, how long is this taking me? Like a well played Minato, how many turns does my opponent actually realistically have to do something about what I'm doing here?
It's really hard to put a number on. But the thing is that it's faster than you think. Because oftentimes when you're playing against Minato, you end up going resource low just to keep up with him. So you're not going to have a lot of cards in hands. And when he just says, yeah, I do this and I recur the other cab stand, like, you have to strike with, 3 cards in hand that all don't matter. And when you strike into him, he just gets his card back.
And you really wish on that turn, you were like, can I please change cards? Can I please move? Can I do something?
Right.
Rather than deal with your boost.
Because if you don't, hey, I just go positive in hand.
Right.
And if you do, you waste something. And if you ever overcommit, I just mill you.
Right.
Ugh. So it's this very fine balance of pressuring the opponent on all sides until they break.
Right.
And then you commit to where the break is and you kill them.
And so they're gonna break in one direction, or they're not gonna break in every way. They're gonna lose something that you can deal with, that you can deal with, that they can no longer deal with, and you're gonna hammer on that fracture point.
Yes.
Okay.
And because you're
right.
kind of mixing up these game styles as the game plays, you're constantly trying to just make every turn the opponent should have to deal with something annoying.
Yeah. So I have an idea,
Yes.
Taxi, that I think I'm understanding the payouts, and I'm understanding the the overall shape of the game plan. The thing I'm not quite clocking yet, and this might just because I'm not the card game guy.
Sure.
The engine is still eluding me a little bit. And this may help people who are slightly more visual learners too.
Mhm.
If we move some stuff here and just generate real quick, like excuse me, Minato, you're coming over here for a second. Can we just generate like a fresh Minato deck? Where is he? There he is.
Hope so. We're in the Exceed
Thank
module.
you.
Okay.
Yeah. Here you go. Can you just like take this on your side? I'm gonna come over to your side of the table really quick.
Yeah, do you want to
like,
change your color to
just,
Game Master so you can see my hand?
Oh, sure. Yeah, good call. This guy.
Reference.
And then I'll come over to your side of the table, and just like I'll grab a Ryu so we have like an opponent as well, but I don't think we'll really need one.
Sure.
I can't do that when I'm the game master, can I? One sec. But basically, what I'm saying is just like fishbowl a game for me, or like a couple turns, a couple hands of what we're talking about here. There's Minato if you need him, or rather, there's Ryu if you need him. Just so we can see in practice what is going on with your resource expenditure dynamics, because that seems like when you have all this stuff going on, you're like, cool, I win, and I have 25 different ways to win. But getting it online is the part that I think requires the most like detail.
Getting it online and playing that fine game, and we'll talk about Minato's weakness later. But
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's just like draw a hand, and let's assume I'm going first, and you can see my hand just fine.
Yeah, sure. Yes,
wonderful. I can. Okay, so I'm looking at this hand, and before my first mulligan, I'm already thinking about what do I have, what do I want to play, and I see here I've got 2 recursion tools.
Yep,
which is good. So maybe I want to play a little bit more of a recursion style, but I know that if I do, I have to deal with Hado, and I don't want to deal with Hado loop, so that's annoying.
Right.
I don't have a Barnstorming in my hand, which is kind of annoying because that would be my like default way to deal with Hado is just start looping things and avoiding its range.
Right. Okay.
So I'm probably going to have to play more into this librarian idea. And I've already got 3 cards for that.
Right.
Flight 13 sets me up for that, so I've got 4 cards that kind of start going for that right now. Grasp does nothing, so I'm going to mulligan Grasp.
You don't need the Grasp, and you're hoping for something better. Yep. Okay.
Cool. I got Spike. Spike's all right. It's not the bestest, but here we go.
Right. Sure.
Okay, turn 1. I know I have to deal with Hado. Hado's really annoying. It's speed 4. I'm going to have to deal with it.
Right.
Excuse me. I don't have a ton of cards that I can afford to discard right away because I got so much value in my hand right away.
Right, this is a good kind of problem to have, but that is kind of one of the early considerations is you need things in your discard pile.
Yes.
Okay.
Luckily, I can just discard these, so I'm probably going to try and start off setting up a reading play to play my Spike, and I'm just going to go into range 2.
Okay, so discarding that.
Yep. I get my card draw, I get my movement, Ryu has to play something. Cool. I don't know what Ryu
we
here,
can
but...
I feel like we can totally training dummy this. I'm just looking for like the flow of resources out of your hand into your discard pile, into your sealed area, all that stuff.
It starts slow while I don't have a lot here.
Okay.
But I would probably go reading Spike. So I'd like reading a focus, reading a sweep, whatever.
He wild swings this grasp.
Sure. Cool. I got to see his hand.
Right. Okay.
Which is big. Now, this
Because you're going to get this reading back later on.
Mm-hmm. This goes there.
Okay.
Awesome. I now have tools. I'm down to 3 cards. Cool. I'll change cards 2. This does not count as 2 force because I'm using my ability.
Oh, that doesn't count that
Correct.
way. An alter from your discard pile is not 2 force. Interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I'm not spending it normally. I'm using this ability to discard it.
Right. I get you.
And I don't really care about this spike engage. I'm not really going an ultra play style right now. I know I have a Streetcar Named Disaster in my hand, but it's still far away, and I don't really want to hold on to cards when I really need a conveyor belt right now.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to go 3 force. I'm going to draw 4 cards. Bam, we're back up to 7.
And this one, because you didn't have your transform that let you seal from gauge yet at the beginning of it, or when you set an attack, this had to go to discard.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We're back up at 7 cards. You know, we're doing all right. I can cap stand here. I can return this Hellward Bound. He had to discard 4 cards because of the Hellward Bound, so.
Right, yeah, we forgot about that.
Oh, this isn't shuffled. That's fine.
No, it's not. But also like the actual decision making, I feel like people like that is too much. People are going to have to find that stuff for themselves. I just need to see like where are cards going and how are they coming back.
Yep. Yeah. I'm playing Good Exceed right now. I've got Cab Stand down. Does he respond to Cab Stand or does he let me have it after playing Hellward Bound?
Right.
He probably.
And you're immediately looking for this reading again because you already had you already had hand information once, and maybe he didn't CC everything.
Correct. And I've got some ideas because I know that if he lets me keep this, he's probably betting on me returning this reading. This is a May. Right. I don't have to, which is always fun.
Oh, you could just draw. Okay.
Yep, I could just draw, or I could, strike with something else.
Right.
So like I have tools, I have options. This is gone. This is kind of this weird. I haven't drawn into a lot of my transforms, which I don't super like. Normally at this point, I'll have at least one down.
And this is a situation where like even with the before effect, like I guess like light flight 13, he's got a sure you can. That seems tough to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, this would be a situation where I could like reading a sweep, for example, that I saw in his hand because he didn't have it, so I got to see his hand.
Sure,
and
then
flight 13
back
down
to get the transform, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it dodges the sweep.
Sure.
Or there might be other tools,
Yeah, sure. Let's pretend that happened though. That's fine. Sure. Like, there's plenty of things that
it's kind
could have been a focus, could have been a block. You don't care. Yeah, but this isn't a real game. I just want to see this stuff.
Notably, this focus would go first because it's an instant, and it goes before the strike. Then this goes after the strike, and then this would get transformed.
Okay. So discard order does matter, obviously, because it's Minato and it's going from the top of his discard pile every time.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I might have to deal with a fireball.
Right.
Or something. But at least I have this, and I can say, I really want this other focus because I'm playing into this librarian style right now.
Right.
Or I really want this cab stand. I don't really want the spike. I don't have my EX engine online, so yeah, I'll do the other focus in the cab stand. I'm starting to build a little bit of a sealed pile. I get to draw a card because I discarded 2. Would you look at that? His Hadoken,
and you can't currently do anything threatening with EXs with the focuses because they're both down. But you do have your recursion online if you want to get it back, and you're going to get it back anyway for reading, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. I would just probably wild swing here. That's cool. I would take the damage, but now I can move back in.
Right.
Multiple ways to move back in.
Yeah.
I could spend.
You got lots of ways. You are still playing your hand, right? You are still able to play Exceed the way that characters tend to play Exceed. But so if you were going to spend for force, right? Like you could move in with run, but you could also say like I am moving to here if you wanted to get these to your sealed area.
Yep. Which lets me go card
Okay.
positive as well, which is nice.
Right.
Because I could do
Right.
that.
Okay.
I can move in 2. I could draw 1 more card. Like,
Right.
so far, we're just playing good exceed. I've got my bus stop now. If he does a
Right.
strike, I don't have any seal options here, which I kind of don't like, so I probably wouldn't do that.
Right. So I think I'm getting this part
Mhm.
right. One more thing though, show me I'm gonna cheat again.
Yeah.
And find you oh, actually no, we have it. Now that you have this, right? Now
Mhm.
that you've got Outrun the Past. So like we're later in the game and you're willing to kind of accelerate your seal engine.
Yes.
So Ryu chucks a Hadouken at you, and rather than Wild Swing, would you like? All right, I Wild Swing and then spend a couple force, or I would like look for options.
This is
I would.
before.
So you would.
So if he threw another Hadouken at me, yeah, I would spend these 2. I would draw 1.
Yep.
And then I would look at my hand and I would determine, should I be Wild Swinging here? Dive isn't going to actually move me in. So that's annoying.
Right.
So I'd probably Hadouken. I'd probably Wild Swing here.
Right. You Wild Swing anyway. And you didn't find an answer, but you got 2 things in your sealed pile anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, hey, it's invalidated. This is good. You miss.
Right.
It misses
Gotcha.
2,
Okay.
but I'll get this back later.
Because it's an after effect, right? And it wasn't. He didn't have gauge. It wasn't crit auto. Whatever. We're playing pretty fast and loose with strategy here. Okay, so that's the And now that that's in your discard pile, it will go to your sealed area. At some point, you're going to Hellward Bound and be able to get this back later.
Mm-hmm.
This is the flow, right? Like now you have this online. You're able to bring things into. This is what you're talking about earlier about acceleration. I think I'm getting all the components now.
Yeah, this is a pretty slow Minato. Part of that is, even though this is a training dummy, I'm kind of treating it like Ryu. And Ryu, you do have to be really scared of his early game.
Right. Okay.
Season 3 in general, they just have high numbers. So like,
yeah,
I have to respect him. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So let me get back over to my preferred side of the board here. That was actually super helpful. I needed a sense not of like where the resources were going, but I needed a sense of like how quickly things were happening. And until you got that transform and until things actually started like to work on that axis, I think I needed that visual.
Yeah, it starts slow. It's an engine. It's got to rev up.
It's got to rev up first, and then as you get more things, you are sealing things more rapidly. You are building to things, and your game plan starts to kind of coalesce. That makes sense to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. What else? What else do we want to do? Strategy wise here, I still have our reference cards if we need them. The thing that I want to talk about at the end of the lesson, obviously, is how do you stop this man?
Mm-hmm.
Where you give away all your secrets about how to beat Minato. But prior to that, now that we've got sort of the basics, what else do you want to go into?
Okay, so we talked about a couple of the playstyles. There's just a couple more, so I'm going to try and touch on them real quick because they're just important concepts. Some of them are kind of similar, but they're notable enough that you need to like understand that these are things you can do. Okay, so we talked about EX Beatdown. We talked about the mill engine.
Yep.
We touched on, it's called defensive dancing. It's a little bit more stall-oriented playstyle where you use your movement options and just recycle them.
So you just not bus stop. You cab stand over and over again and use your
you
one
dodge what the opponent's doing on your turn and you hit them with light pokes over and over again.
Oh, okay.
And jump the shark is usually your friend for like closing out the game.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's kind of because you'll have stuff in your sealed area anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, and you're just kind of playing this very slow-paced game. They have to spend a lot of cards to do stuff, and you just always have a full hand. You can just always play good options.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And if they like have a turn that they waste, you just say, okay, I play cross at like range 6. You're not giving any info. They have to just discard a card.
And obviously you're getting it back because you have your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's kind of the mill engine before you get the mill engine online.
Right. You're just being very, very defensive, and you're not able to actually stall them out of that many options. So like this will lead into milling the opponent out once you have that ability.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They have to choose between discarding cards from their hand and going resource negative that they have to catch up on every single turn.
Right.
Or wild swinging, and maybe they discard a card they really couldn't afford to discard.
And then you can either continue doing what you're doing, or you pivot to dealing with making them deal with the absence of that card.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. We've got, it's called Tokyo Drift Minato, is what we named it.
Okay.
And
that's a sick name. Okay.
It's the idea of going fast, but rather than like wait until you have bus stop, you just go. You just play your entire hand out, just discard your cards, just use every card in your hand, right? Almost kind of like Enchantress, where she plays all of her cards before she draws up new ones.
Like you are trying to get through your hand as fast as possible.
You just play your hand, go, 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 go. Cool, big change cards action. Go, 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 go. Big change cards action.
And now I got a sealed area. I'm stronger. I got a sealed, and at some point I got bus stop along the way.
Yeah. You just pick up the cards in your hand. As soon as you look at your hand and say, I don't have anything great to do this turn, great. Change cards, draw 7 more.
Okay.
Yeah. Just get rid of everything.
Hopefully you hit with what is the name of your reshuffle?
Barnstorming?
Barnstorming. Hopefully you hit with Barnstorming at some point, so that you don't.
Typically the game ends before then, because you're playing so many attacks and you're often just like hitting. Right. Usually this is a little bit better of a variant against things like new or other zoners that don't really have like they have like a hole at range 1. And you just say, I'm here, I'm attacking right now, I'm just doing my thing. I don't have to deal with low tempo because I just get free resources. So I don't have to worry about running out and you pushing me out and having to prepare. You push me out, cool, I'm back in. Okay.
Yeah, you're back, and they don't have any time to rebuild anything that they're spending.
Correct.
Okay.
We got, it's called Answers Loop, Minato. It's that same idea where you use your recursion engine to get like reading back or parry back, except you just do it on an attack that they can't beat.
Sure. Yeah, their assaults are down. Spike them at range 3 over and over again.
Yes.
Right. Is like the simplest way to do that.
Yep. Or dive, or basically whatever. Just keep doing it.
Sure. Yeah. You pressure the defensive option that they lost until they lose it.
Yeah.
And then you keep on hammering that spot. Okay.
And usually, just to kind of give you an idea of what that loop is, say they lose the grasp, and you can just say they have no sweeps, they have no focuses, like every card just loses to grasp.
Sure.
You grasp them, so grasp goes in your gauge, right?
Yep.
You spend a turn doing something good for you. If you can steal grasp, you do, or grasp goes to your discard, right? You might like play another attack, and while you play it, then you seal this.
And then you outrun the past while you're doing it. Yeah. So you do need outrun the past to do this.
Yes.
Or at least to do it fast, I guess. You could change cards into your discard pile from gauge and then seal it later.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically you'll have like 2 things that you're doing, and then you'll have a downtime turn between each of them.
Okay.
Just to kind of like set yourself back up.
Right.
If you're really confident that you can win before you deck out, this gets rid of your downtime turns.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because you're sealing your entire discard pile every turn.
Correct. So yeah, it's useful.
Right.
We talked about Librarian already. Oh, another one you can loop is speed boosts.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you have this.
Those are hard to deal with.
And you have light. And you just kind of loop them over and over again.
You just be fast at them.
Yes, you just be fast, and it's hard to deal with because being fast is really good in this game. Um, yeah, but you have ideas. You
Do you have a personal favorite playstyle? I know that you mentioned that the EX one is kind of the one that most new players go to, and that's kind of like the default line. Do you have one that like is like the taxi special?
I don't really go for the EX playstyle that much. Part of it is with taxi meta, we would rather have a slow, controlled game than a fast, random one.
Okay.
So I prefer slowing down the pace of the game because it creates more skill points for a better player to be able to win more often.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're newer, you tend to
So
want to speed up the game because there's a chance the opponent just doesn't draw their answer.
right, sure.
Yeah. Um, so I tend to lean towards kind of defensive dancing mill style, where I'm not really looking to win by deck out, although I will if you overcommit your deck.
But you're looking for places to open up holes.
Correct. And then as soon as you open up a
Okay.
hole, I will go into one of the looping play styles that loops the thing you're bad against. Whether it's an
Sure,
attack,
yeah,
whether
and
you open yourself up to reading loops, you know.
whatever it is,
Yes.
right? Okay, makes sense.
But yeah.
Do we want to? I think I'm just barely keeping up here.
Okay.
The way that I do this, like because I'm also like producing the show and making sure that like audio levels are right. I will go and write the guide for this later, and that's when I'll actually learn how Minato works. But I'm pretty sure I'm up to speed. Do we want to move into counterplay?
Sure. And just to make sure, just a total recap of Minato.
Yeah.
You can be aggressive and make everything EX. You can be defensive and keep dodging stuff. You can mill the opponent and get rid of their outfit options
And their outfit, why not?
and their outfit. Yes, that's actually why Ryu has no sleeves. Minato doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah, he's midway through a Minato game.
Yes.
Okay.
Or you can loop stuff that beats the opponent.
Right. And ideally, you're doing a combination of those things over the course of a game.
Correct.
You're not really devoting everything to one playstyle. You're being reactive.
Yep.
Okay.
You are switching between them constantly.
Gotcha.
Usually you want to do at least two of those things because you have a hard time just doing one quickly. But if you do two, you can kind of like switch between them on your off turns.
Sure, and they're both kind of advancing some parts of the same end game because like I want to have sealed stuff in my like if nothing else, the thing that the attack whose name I already forget that gets stronger the more things I have in my sealed area. Everybody appreciates that. Even if I'm not deliberately going for that, cool, I can get it.
Yep.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. So that's how he works. He's got
Yep.
a lot of very solid building blocks. Go forth and figure out how to use them in your matchup.
Yep. I feel like he is definitely somebody like understanding how he works is important, but also get some experience under your belt with him. You will figure out how the resources move around. You'll figure out what you want to do with him. You'll make some mistakes.
Yes.
Right? He seems like the kind of character that you could lose games way, way, way before the strike that killed you actually happened, and you might not know why at first. So like pay attention to those games and figure out like broaden your horizons about what is a decision in Exceed, where you're sealing stuff, all that stuff. So keep an eye out for that stuff as you're learning him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And as you get to a very high level, you care about specific matchups a lot.
Right.
A lot.
Right. Yeah.
More than most other characters.
You're looking for. I mean, you've called him sort of a counterplay style character. You're looking for what they're doing and how to stop it,
Yes.
and you've got to be flexible in order to do that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, weaknesses.
Yeah, please. For the love of God, Taxi, how do I stop this man?
So the good news is, I think Minato used to be a top 3 character in the game.
Yeah.
If you asked me to put him in the current meta, I don't think he fits in the top 3rd.
Okay.
And it's because he's bad at boosting. He's kind of
Okay.
got the speed boost thing going on, but it's one of his more costly playstyles because he has to seal cards with a big speed boost.
Right.
A lot of other characters, especially season 7, especially season 5, they can usually boost with tempo.
Yeah.
Whereas in season 2 and even season 3 to some extent, there was a big idea of like, I boost and pass turn, but you can't strike into me because striking into my boost is dangerous.
Right.
But these characters kind of boost and they just get so much good value out of it, and Minato has a hard time
Right.
keeping up with that.
So canceling now strike boosts, the advent of that sort of more tempo heavy playstyle,
Yes.
he has trouble with.
Right. His big
Okay.
advantage back in the day was he had better tempo than almost anyone else. And
Right.
now most characters just kind of have his tempo.
Okay.
And they have bigger, better stat blocks.
Right. So he's doing a lot of work to do what characters these days are naturally built to do.
Yes.
Okay.
And his
And
end game is still really good. His end game can still beat most characters nowadays. It's just getting there.
Before his opponent gets to their end game and just kills him with their better buttons.
Yep.
Okay. And he was legal. Correct me if I'm wrong, Taxi. The last time that Minato was legal, the most recent season was season 5.
Yes,
with BlazBlue?
2 through 5.
Okay. So all of Undernight and all of Guilty Gear has been largely untested against Minato, but you're theorizing basically that the upped pace that we started seeing from season 5 that continued on, he'd have trouble against all of those guys.
Season 5 and especially season 7, yes. Season 6.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. But towards season 5, we started seeing some characters that just kind of can keep up with Minato. Season 5 is extremely tight. You get the gauge you need, you get your power spikes, you can consistently capitalize on them. Season 3 was good, and it's very footsies oriented, and they could do a lot of stuff, and it already was a different matchup that Minato had to be very careful about dealing with. But like season 5 is just faster. It's just faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he might have trouble keeping up. So if we're talking about the modern metagame, where honestly, like odds are, if you are playing Minato these days, you are either playing in a casual setting against whoever you want to play against, and that is a consideration. But if you're playing in like a legacy tournament where it's like, hey, throwback time, it's these guys. How are some of the older characters, or maybe season 2 through 4 or something? How are the older characters in the series dealing with him?
Okay, so for the characters in the older series, it's very matchup dependent. Once again,
Sure.
Promo Knight has boosts. We've talked about him. He has, a couple boosts in his kit.
Right. Yeah, see, I'm familiar with Promo Knight's couple of boosts, Taxi.
So we'll talk about some of the stronger characters that deal with him. Lucia probably is one of his best counters because Lucia gets a lot of speed. She just has fast attacks. Okay. She just kind of hits him. It's very hard for Minato to play that kind of defensive game that's more consistent. So he kind of has to lean into being faster, which can create some more inconsistency.
Okay.
Galdrin is the funniest matchup that's probably bad for Minato. Specifically because Galdrin has a card that makes you transform.
Oh, that makes you exceed. That's right. He has metamorphosis.
Yes, and
good point.
Exceeding into Borgorama early is a death sentence.
You just explode, right?
Yes, because you don't have a discard pile anymore.
Right. And obviously that's something that like kind of only Galdrin can do. But Lucia crutching on her speed boosts and her fast attacks, like if you are a character who has those things, that might be like the beginning of counterplay for your character. Like if you're not playing Lucia in particular, but you're playing you're playing Ryu, right? You've got or Sagat, you've got big scary speed boosts. You can maybe scare Minato with those. So, as a generality, boosting big stats might be something that he has a little bit of trouble with without some work.
His stats are pretty balanced around the fact that he can EX everything, especially his specials. So if you have cards that can like beat EX normals, it's really hard for him to deal with that because his normals typically are just his best attacks.
So you've got big scary stat monster characters who can say like, yeah, sure, EX sweep, donkey kick, whatever. You've got characters with their own end games and their own engines. You've got action compression and tempo. So he's got a couple of weaknesses, but you need it seems like you need like a lot in any one of those piles to really give him trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was still strong in season 3, often because these characters do have cards that just beat EX attacks, but they only have a couple of them.
So he could recur things, he can but they're hitting him, and they're hitting him pretty hard at the same time. Okay.
5, season 7, I would say the average card quality for the characters went way up. Because attacks became a lot more about doing something and hitting. You're advancing a game plan and you're hitting someone at the same time.
Right. I close in, I gain advantage. I put a card on top of my from my deck on top, the top of my deck into my gauge, and take 4 or something.
That's intentional design too, because a lot of the design was, especially overtly with season 6, but I think it was done better by season 5. Was during the design process, we wanted to step away from very slow-paced, methodical taxi meta style, where both players and just set up.
And honestly, the kind of thing that Minato is really good at is that's the ecosystem that he became an apex predator in. This one is not his anymore. Okay.
Yeah. And like there are still opportunities to go set up. And like a lot of taxi meta concepts still carry forward, but the idea of let's go back to range 8 and set up and like get our engine going and just like draw out the game. Because if you're attacking me, I'll just accelerate my engine, I'll win later, it's fine.
That doesn't really work as well anymore, yeah.
Which is good, because that's not really healthy for a game.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Minato.
Yep.
Huh.
Anything else you want to know?
I gotta process all of this, man. I think I got it. I think people are I hope people like this one. I hope that my exasperation at all of this nonsense comes through well. Taxi, thank you so much, as always, for your time and your expertise. I always appreciate talking to you, man. It's very fun.
No problem. I know the beginning was a little bit scattered, so hopefully people can still follow.
All. No. We'll be just fine. Audience at home, I hope you learned something. I hope that I didn't just like create a bunch of new Minato players by putting this guide together.
Your takeaway from this video shouldn't be, I want to go home and play Minato. Your takeaway from this video should be, I want to go home and play some promo night, specifically against Gear.
Yeah, against me in particular. That's an excellent point. I actually do want to say something kind of serious, because I've been making fun of Minato this whole time and how scary he is. If you are salty about losing to a Minato, that's cool. Please do not main shame. Please do not get mad at people who like playing Minato and who vibe with his aesthetic or his playstyle. Like, yeah, he's strong. Yeah, he's kind of frustrating to fight against, I think. But I'm making these jokes because Taxi's a buddy of mine. Yeah. Be a little careful that remember that your opponent is like a human being and has feelings. Don't get so salty at Minato that you take it out on them. Please be a little careful of that, folks. We're in a community here. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna go rub my face some more. Really try to work out all the stuff you told me, Taxi. Thank you so much.
Yep. And to add to the main shaming thing, different people want different things out of the game. I specifically am notorious for playing a lot of characters that people think are strong. A lot of the reason why some of the more competitive players will pick characters they think they're strong, it's a respect thing for their opponent. We are both playing a game to win. I'm going to pick the options that give me the best chance against you because I respect your strength.
Yeah, in your opinion, picking a lower tier character is something that you would not you wouldn't do because it isn't respectful of your opponent.
It's less about picking a lower tier character and more about I would not pick a character that I don't think has the ability to win
Right.
at a high level. Like,
Right. I think that
I'm
makes
not a
sense.
huge believer in Sea Viper. Some people are. I personally don't think Sea Viper is capable of winning a lot of big events consistently. Consistently being a keyword.
Right.
I wouldn't pick Sea Viper because I would see that as insulting to my opponent that
As
I'm not willing to like
eh,
play against them competitively.
right
Mhm.
to go to give it your all against the opponent.
But
Yeah,
if you
that makes
do,
sense.
it's not a tier thing. If you think Sea Viper can win consistently and you found something that you think is strong on her, go take it and play it. That's good.
Right.
Just
Right.
believe in your mains.
No, I think that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And if you are and like this main shaming thing goes both ways. If you are in a scene with a lot of people who play a lot of perceived top tiers and you are a player of someone who is a uh, perceived lower tier, don't take it too hard. Just beat them, right?
Yep. Exceed's a very balanced game. There are very few
Yeah,
matchups that are unwinnable.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that that's good advice both for tournament mentality and also just for like community stuff.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, thank you for that insight, Taxi. Um, but yeah, I think that about does it for Minato. Taxi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will talk to everybody later. I'll see you for the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.